Thank you. Thank you. All right. Let's go. This is a religious cooking class. That's what we're going to do today. We're going to cook up something that hasn't been made before. And I'm going to do my best to give you all the ingredients that we're going to need for this. And let's start here with the most important thing. I think the most important thing is to bring the name Bill Maher into the conversation. The most famous atheist in America, who, I might add, is half Jewish and half Catholic, as I've been told. And, you know, how did we do it? How did we do it? The man wrote a movie, made a movie about nothing. About nothing. How do you do that? Today we're going to make a little movie about something. Something. All right. So, the importance of Bill Maher in this conversation is that we need to have the spirit of a doubting Thomas in the room at all times. Thank you, Lord, for atheists, because they're the most doubting Thomases we could possibly have. Not only are they doubting, when it comes to Bill Maher, they're not just a doubting Thomas, they're a skeptical Skip. They're a cynical Cindy. Bill Maher has a conscience that is so strong and so developed, but he doesn't have God consciousness. That's what's missing. And that's what we're going to talk about today. Yeah. We're going to talk about God consciousness and how you make it and how you spread it and how you enjoy it. So, I guess I should say that my name is Barry Emanuel Zeev. Barry, Irish. It's an Irish name. It means spear. And it's very, very powerful. Emmanuel, like you don't know it. Emmanuel, God with us, God with us, God with us, God with us. Emmanuel. It's Hebrew. God with us. And my last name is Zeev. Zeev is a Hebrew word. It means a ray of light. All right, so that's my name. I was a teacher, as Diane said. I was a teacher. I taught junior high, high school, and a little bit of college level English. And I know how long the attention span is of most people. So this is why it takes what it takes to get people to remember things. In fact, I forgot something. So excuse me 1 minute while I walk over here and I get my coat so that I can take my coat off. Do you remember when I spoke here at Lent? Not at Lent, at Vesper service. I'm such a Catholic, huh? So I'm not. A Jewish to the core. I spoke here at Vesper services about a passage from the book of Isaiah. And if you remember what I said, in essence, I said that this is like the Hebrew Bible, and this is like the Christian Bible. This is Judaism, this is Christianity. And this little chupchik here, this little something that is so mysterious, that makes it possible to do this is Islam. Do you remember I talked about that? All right, so that's a mnemonic device. That's what it takes sometimes to get your point across. So where are we? Needless to say, we're going to use that. We're going to use that. We're going to use that. Here we are on a Saturday morning in the Castro neighborhood, the gay neighborhood of San Francisco, and we're going to talk about God. We're going to talk about Shabbos. This is Saturday. This is my day of rest, my holy day. Tomorrow is yours, and yesterday was the Muslim. So here I am, sort of squeezed in between the two. And Julia Childs, I'm not. So it's Saturday. It's my day of rest, my holy day. And you know, every civilization in the world has a calendar of when to sow and when to reap. It's a universal necessity of life. You've got to measure time. But we gave the world a moral calendar of 7 days, and the whole world is using it. Not very well, I might add. But that's what a moral calendar is all about. So, what are we talking about when we're talking about God? We're talking about time. Time is of the essence. George, you're so sweet. They're too good to me. They're too good to me. You're such a sweetheart. Too good to me. Oh well. Time is of the essence. And there's objective time, the time that we share around us, that we can measure. And there's subjective time, the time within that we can't measure. You know, if you take one of these over time and you look at yourself in it and you go, oh my God, what happened? What happened? I started out like a grape and I've turned into a raisin. That's subjective time. Everybody has their own impressions of time, their own sense of what time means to them. And in 2008, in April, here we are in March, just before your holiday of Easter, but in April of 2008, I went to Israel, and on a Friday night, I went to the Wailing Wall, and oh my God, there's so many. God, that's a big package. I went to the Wailing Wall, and I married myself at the Wailing Wall on a Friday night. You think we've got a problem in this country about gays marrying? Wait till you hear what Israel will have to say when they discovered that I married me. They're not going to be happy. Those rabbis are not going to be happy. I don't know why. What's the big deal? For better or for worse, in sickness or in health, do you make a commitment to yourself? Start with you. Can you make a commitment for a lifetime? That's what I finally decided to do. And I'm 59 years old right now. You don't get closer to 60 than 59. So I went to Israel. I married myself. I brought myself a token of my love for me. This is a 3-dimensional Star of David, because to be a Jew is not a flat experience. It's not something you just take a picture of. It should have depth. It should have a sense of being alive, being a part of this world. And the same can be said of the cross and the crescent. All right, so I went to Israel. I went to the land of milk and honey. Did you ever ask anybody, what does that mean? And excuse me for using the word hell, but what the hell does that mean? We're up to here in hell. We're swimming in it. It's all around us. The issue is how to get out of it, not how to get into it. All right. Please, I promised you I wouldn't get so upset, but please keep me calm. So I went to Israel, to the land of milk and honey. What does it mean, milk and honey? Milk is the essence of love. You cannot live without milk. You cannot start a life without milk. Mother's milk is the essence of all spiritual consumption. Mother's milk is where it all begins. Mother's milk is the essence of eternal love. The land of milk and honey is Israel. Why Israel? Israel means to struggle with God. Who does not struggle with God? Who does not struggle with love? But what's sweeter than love? Honey. What's the honey of life? What makes life so precious that it's even more precious than love? Because love comes and goes. Even eternal love is something you have to work for. It's something you have to believe in. What's sweeter than love is wisdom. With wisdom you get answers. And with answers you have something. And what can you do with that something, Bill Maher? You can love. That's what you do with wisdom. You love with it. It makes love all the more powerful. Love is the most important, and wisdom is the most powerful. You've got to have both. All right. Well, we're here in the Castro neighborhood of San Francisco in a Catholic church, and I, although you don't know it, am the rabbi of Castro Street. I ordained myself. Nobody else was going to do it. Look, did Jesus have somebody ordain him? No. He was a rabbi too. He knew what he was talking about. And I'll tell you why. We're going to get there. But as a rabbi of Castro Street, I've been to the plaque on the sidewalk where we have the plaque of Harvey Milk, the founding father of our community. And I got down on all fours and I kissed that plaque because he was so important to me. You know, you got to live the way you believe. You got to do what you think is right. All right. Why was he so important to me? Because 50,000 gay men in America have died since he, the founding father of our community, started our quest here. 50,000 men. Why? So that I can use the word penis and vagina in public. So that, do you remember in the 80s you couldn't put a condom on a banana? You couldn't do it. It was too big a deal. You know what? I'm going to use the word anus today, too. Watch and see. All right. So the name of this discussion today, the name of this talk, as you saw, is called How It Takes a Good Jew Within to Make a Good Christian Throughout. And because we're in a Catholic church and I want to get my message across, I have to do it with feelings. I have to make an impression upon you, those who have been given the Sacred Heart. I have to speak to you, and if I don't do it with my feelings, it's not going to be very meaningful to you. So that's my goal today. All right. That was the introduction to the introduction to the introduction. We're done. Oh, no. One more thing. Sorry. Today is also, or this holiday of Purim also comes this week. And Purim is like Jewish Halloween. takes place in Persia 2,500 years ago. There was a queen by the name of Esther who saved the Jewish people. Well, we got new queens today. All right. Now comes the introduction to the introduction. Put on your thinking caps, all right? My father taught me a prayer when I was a small child, 5 years old maybe. Shema Israel Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. He taught it to me in Hebrew, and English wasn't his first language. He taught it to me in English. You know what he didn't teach me? What it means. What does it mean? If it doesn't have meaning, what's the point? All right. So when it comes to meaning, Bill Maher, we have to go back to the Hebrew Testament. And now, as an English teacher, I'm afraid I have to give you some vocabulary. The first word that you need to know is Torah. Torah is the 5 books of Moses. This much of the Hebrew Testament is called Torah. The 5 books of Moses that he gave to the Jewish people about 1,500 years before Christ. The entire book is called Tanakh. Tanakh is the Hebrew Testament. And then we have yet another, like Encyclopedia Britannica, on top of that, called Talmud. And I'm going to talk today very briefly about Talmud a little bit later. But now we also have the Christian Testament. And the Christian Testament goes on top of the Hebrew Testament, right? Life is a school, and I have one major, and you're taking a double major. You got to know both. That's your cross to bear, Cookie. It's not my problem. All right, so much for vocabulary. Torah, Tanakh, Talmud. But here's 3 words in English that you need to know too. Fact. What's a fact? A fact is something you can measure. A fact is something that we can all agree upon. That's a fact. What's at the opposite end? A fiction. What do you call fiction in terms of religion? A myth. Did you say that, Vic? It's a myth. Ask Bill Maher. There's fact and there's myth. What is the essence of myth today? Creationism. They take fact, and in order to explain the world around them, they use their belief system to make the facts fit their ideas. That's a myth. The Greeks did it, the Romans did it, and now the Republicans are doing it. So what do we have in between? What is there between fact and myth? There's metaphor. Metaphor. And the master of metaphor was Moses. Torah is metaphor. So let's go back in time, in history, to look at the creation of this body of metaphors. 1,500 years ago, Moses tells the story. He is the author of his own book. He tells his own life story, and he says, I killed a man, and I ran away, and then I went back. And thanks to having gone back, with God's help, I was able to do some good in the world. And that's Torah. So what makes it any different from all those other gods? The other gods were gods of fear. And now I'm coming back to the Sacred Heart. This is a feeling. A god of fear is plentiful. Pagans have it. All kinds of people fear gods. Moses came up with a different God, a very different God. This is a God who makes you feel guilty. Guilty. You do something wrong, you go back, you fix it, good things will happen. What a concept. All right, so 1,500 years ago, he comes up with this story. About 1,000 years ago, they write it down. No. 1,500 years before Christ, he comes up with the story. It's an oral tradition. About 1,000 years before Christ, they write it down. And what happens for the next 500 years, from about the year 1000 to 500 BCE? First, he gives them a nibble of guilt. It takes on like wildfire. They just love it. What is this stuff? It is so good. And you know what? It starts to heat up. The Jews are so tickled by what Moses has given them that they absolutely love it. I didn't try this at home. I know you told me I should have, and I really wish I had. But, you know, what do they have? They have sacrifices. God gave us this wonderful stuff called guilt, and now we're going to feed him. We're going to feed him animals. Day and night, we're going to light fires at the temple, before that at the tabernacle, and we are going to give God a good meal in appreciation, that's hot, for what he gave us. So it gets really, really hot in the Middle East, and they're having a great time. Circumcision, all kinds of other things, kosher food, and this, it's working. It starts to spread. Jews are loving it. I mean, they can't keep their hands off of it. It's fabulous. And now they love it. They absolutely love it. It's so good. Oh my God, oh my God. We love it, we love it, we love it. You know, they make a mess of it. They make such a mess of it. I tell you, if not, the war with the Babylonians, they lost, they go into slavery, they lose 10 tribes with the Assyrians. I mean, because of this love of guilt, they get themselves into such hot water like you wouldn't believe. So we have a problem that needs cleaning up, right? Oh, George, thank you so much. This was such a good idea. We have a problem that needs cleaning up. And before we can clean it up, we actually have to spread it further, because that's what God wants of us. How do we spread it further? We can't do it by ourselves. But God helps us. What was the biggest civilization at the time? The Greeks. And the Greeks were very intellectual, doubting, skeptical, cynical people, and they wanted to know all about Torah. So they asked the rabbis to translate the Torah into Greek. Well, that's not so easy. Why? Because up until that time, you had to be a rabbi to read Torah. Why? What does the word rabbi mean? Rabbi means many, literally, rav, many. Figuratively, it means genius. You had to be a genius. Well, I'm a self-appointed genius, and I'm going to tell you why that was so difficult. And this is the God's honest truth. Why did you have to be a rabbi to read Torah? Because Torah was written one letter after another, without a break. This whole book was absolutely one series of letters, one after another. There was no break between them. And the Greeks were smart enough to say, we don't want it with your formatting. We want breaks between the words. We want periods at the end of the sentences. We want paragraphs. We want chapters. We don't care if you divide it up into 5 books, which they did. And it was a bestseller. It just caught on like wildfire. It did very, very well. And then the rabbis went, my God, if it's this good in Greek, let's do the same in Hebrew. Thanks to the Greeks, we have the written word broken down into many words, so that when the Christians write the Christian Testament, which I believe begins, in the beginning there was the Word, and the Word was God, and the Word was with God, what they're referring to is this. This was the Word. It was one word from God. And we broke it down so that we don't have to all be rabbis in order to get it. This is what Jesus already knew. This was common knowledge at that time that has been lost along the way. So that's a little bit of a historical perception of the master of metaphor, Moses. But then along comes Jesus. And what does Jesus say? Have I got something for you? Melts in your mouth, not in your hands. What a concept. What an incredible concept. Moses brings guilt into the world, and Jesus brings love. So what are we going to do today? By the way, I have to add, what does this look like? It looks like a rainbow. Yes, this is a rainbow. Noah and the ark, that's where the rainbow begins. The rainbow is in the sky. Any doubting Thomas who's smart enough to have a little bit of a struggle with God will tell you, what good is a rainbow to me? It's up there in the sky, in the heavens. I can't use it. Your promises are useless to me up there. You got to bring them down. I need promises in the flesh. I need promises that are real. That's the kind of promise I need. That's what we got. What's the gay flag? Rainbow. Aren't we special? Aren't we special? And I'm going to continue with that idea a little bit later. But for the moment, that was the introduction to the introduction. And I also have one more thing to say. As I said, I was a teacher, and I taught my students. And I have to say that I have a great deal of love for learning and a great deal of love for education. But nowadays, we all know about going postal and how crazy it is out there to earn a living. And I'm not going to go postal. I'm going to go public. I'm going to take education and go public with it. That's what you do as a teacher. You teach people. You show them. You go public. You don't listen to the lies and to the myths and the stories that they create that are nonsense. You stick to fact, and you go as far as metaphor, and you don't go any further. It helps to look at yourself in the mirror from time to time. You'd be amazed at what you'll see. Despite the raisoning effect, you'll actually come to like yourself. If you can learn to love God and then learn to like you, marry you, commit yourself to you, believe me, you'll have something to give to others. All right. So, we have Moses, the master of metaphor. We have Jesus, who is the savior of symbolism. And we have Muhammad, who is the sire of signs to come. Now I would like to ask my boyfriend to come up here, Will, because I would like to tell you more about the main story of Torah, the creation story, the story of Adam and Eve. Adam and Steve. All right. face the group here. When you make the Bible personal, when it really becomes personal to you, you take on all the characters in it. You don't just take on the ones you like. You make it personal. So in the creation story, we have Adam, which is the head of man, the thinking part, the part of you that has a relationship with God. And what is God to the essential man, the first man, the smallest man, the infant? God is the essence of the conscience, that part of the conscience that speaks to the mind and says, I put you in a garden, and you can eat from all the trees in the garden, with the exception of one. Okay, the tree of knowledge of good and evil. The mind gets lonely, another matter of the heart. Loneliness is a terribly, terribly painful, difficult thing to live with. And that's the first feeling that Moses brings up in Torah, loneliness. Adam gets lonely. And so God brings Eve into his life, the personification of feelings, the heart. Now, Eve never heard about the tree of knowledge of good and evil that Adam was not supposed to touch or not supposed to pick from. It's not there. It's not in the book. You read the story. When God told Adam, it was before there was Eve. Afterwards comes Eve, the essence of feeling, and feeling starts to explore the core of one's being. Now, I'm going to give you a hint. This is the tree of knowledge of good and evil. This is it. It's not a mystery, it's a metaphor. This is it. This is, can I take your hand? Wait, 1 second. So, she goes down here and she meets the talking serpent. There's no such thing as Satan. It's a serpent, not a Satan. It talks. It talks about desires. Desires, the world of desires. And when your desires conspire with your feelings, who's going to get in trouble? Your head. It's not that tough, people. It's not rocket science. It's metaphor. So what does the serpent ask Eve? What did God tell you? He told you, and she says, he told us. It wasn't us. The heart always seems to get things mixed up a little bit. Have you noticed? Have you noticed? Have you looked in the mirror? The heart gets things mixed up from time to time. She says that God told them that they should never touch, pick the fruit of, or even, give me your hand, touch the tree of knowledge. Don't even touch it? Are you kidding me? It's too late now. You're in for a penny, you're in for a pound. It's a metaphor. And how would this serpent know so much about the fruits of knowledge of good and evil? Because they're right there. It's the fruits cookie. One is good, that's on the right side. And one is evil, that's on the gauche side, the left side, the wrong side. Good and evil. And who would know more about that than the serpent, right? It's a metaphor. It's a metaphor. All right. So this is a tree of knowledge of good and evil. And this is an explanation for the meaning of life. And this is the infantile stage where you start with the metaphor and you have to explore this tree that you're in, this vehicle for this journey. It's another metaphor. Excuse me, I mixed a metaphor. I mixed metaphors. Life is a journey. Life is a tree. You grow. You branch out in many directions. You develop a backbone like a trunk, and you also develop roots. And those roots should go down deep. And by the end of Torah, when Moses is on the edge of Israel, on the banks of the Jordan, what does he tell the Jewish people, the Israelites? He says to them, God is your rock. It's your rock. And when this tree of knowledge grows deep, the roots go down and they entwine with the rock for support. That's the metaphor. And that metaphor will turn into a sign through Muhammad, through the Dome of the Rock, and at Mecca there is another rock there. They are deeply, deeply engaged with the roots of their faith in the rock that supports us all. All right, thank you. You can sit down. All right, that's the introduction. We're through with the introduction. Let's get to the body of this talk. I'm now going to talk about symbolism. I've talked about metaphor. Now I'm going to talk about Jesus. I'm going to talk about symbolism. I'm going to talk about making love. How do you make love? Oh, you know what? Where's the apple? Oh.
You just don't want to touch it.
Yeah. Before I go into symbolism, I think I better talk about guilt. All right? 1, 2. 2 apples, 2 sources of power, 2 life-giving essences out of which the serpent spits, right? And this essence of power is guilt. So we need to explore it. We need to find out what this is all about. Let's look into it. Let's take a plate here. And let's cut into guilt and see what we have. All right? This is the inside of guilt, the metaphor. And it has 3 levels. It has a peel, it has the meat, and it has a core. What is the peel? First of all, I should tell you, we've all eaten it. It's in all of us. Guilt is in everyone. It's spread far and wide. There ain't nobody on planet Earth who don't suffer for it. You know, you all have it. It's all far and wide. Everybody has it. Some have fear, some have anger, some have sorrow, but everybody has guilt. Anyway, let's start with the peel. What is the peel made of? What is the peel, the outside of guilt? It's very easy. It comes from the story itself. You look at Torah. Adam and Eve ate from the tree of knowledge of good and evil, and what did they realize? They were naked. They were nude, to be very accurate. They were nude. And they covered themselves up. That experience of being nude has a name in terms of matters of the heart. It's called embarrassment. It's embarrassment. When you're so exposed and so nude that people can see you to that degree, you feel embarrassed. And how do you get over it? How do you swallow embarrassment? How do you get it through you? It's easy. Your mother did it. She got you to dress yourself, to use the toilet, to eat like a mensch at the table, to say please and thank you. That was the essence of moving through embarrassment. To what? Modesty. Modesty. You go through embarrassment over a lifetime, you become a modest human being. That's the essence of that level of guilt. But now we have to look at the flesh. What happened next in the story? Next, they hear God walking in the garden. Excuse me? God is going to make noise when he walks? Not unless he wants to. Not unless he wants to. He doesn't have to make any noise. If he makes noise, it's because he wants to. He wants to let them know that he's coming. What do? They run and hide. Where? Amongst the other trees. Isn't that what we've done all our lives? We've hidden amongst each other. What is this? Why? What is the meat of guilt? The meat of guilt is shame. The second level of disobedience. Shame. How do we usually deal with shame when we're very infantile? We run and hide. We try to look good. Fashion, I'm going to look like everybody else. Speech, I'm going to talk like everybody else. Action, I'm going to do like everybody else. I don't want to stand out. I don't want to look different. I want to just fit in so that it won't appear that I'm ashamed of myself. How do we get through shame? How do we get through it? We get through shame by learning right from wrong. We get through shame by going back and saying we made a mistake. We get through shame by saying we're sorry. What does that produce in terms of matters of the heart? It produces humility. It's a wonderful thing. It's wonderful to be humble. It's not that pride cometh before the fall. It's arrogance. We gay people are proud to be gay, but we're not arrogant. You want to look at arrogance? We'll talk about them later, the Republicans. I tell you, I have never, until this year, 2012, and last year, 2011, seen such arrogance. These are the people who seem to know so much about God? It's outrageous. It's outrageous. God says to them, to Adam, "Why did you cover yourself?" He says, "I was naked." God says to him, did you eat from the tree of knowledge of good and evil that I told you not to eat from? This woman that you gave me. Blame. Blame. I'll blame her, and I'll blame you. I'm not going to eat the core. I would rather humiliate myself. Humiliation. The deepest level of guilt. Humiliation. How do you get through it? How do you get through it when you make an utter fool of yourself? How do you get through that in matters of the heart? In matters that really matter? Well, there's a word for that in Hebrew. Oh, good. There's a word for that in Hebrew. The word is chesed. They like to interpret it, the rabbis go out of their way to interpret it as loving kindness. It's not loving kindness. The word chesed means loyalty. You get through humiliation by discovering and developing loyalty. Loyalty to your country, patriotism. Loyalty to your family, keeping your promises. Loyalty to God, faith. That's how you get through humiliation, with loyalty. All right. That's pretty much the infantile, the lowest level of the metaphor of the tree of knowledge of good and evil. Then comes Cain and Abel, and then Noah and the ark, and then the Tower of Babel, and then you get to Abraham. A fool, an utter fool. A grown man, but such a fool. I'll get to him later. But let's first go on to the body of this talk. The body of this talk is on love. On love and how to make love. And who knows better than how to make love than the people in this community who are so practiced. We have lots of practice in making love. We have something to say, something to offer the world. So, how do you make this candy coating called love that's so good that keeps it from melting in your hands and not in your mouth? By the way, I'm particularly fond, I like them all. They come in yellow, like ikuko, somebody from the Far East, from Japan, and yellow coating. They're great. They come in red, like American Indians, South American Indians, Central American Indians. They're great. They come in blue, like sad. They come in blue. They're great. They come in green. They care about the earth. They care about the environment. They're great. But they also come in brown. And these are my favorite. I just love the ones in brown. And they're great. But, quite frankly, they all taste the same. I can't help it. I don't see any difference. So, we're going to talk now about how to make love. And we're going to talk about what Jesus had to do to make love, to take the path of wisdom and veer off in another direction and create another path, a path called love. And he had to do it with people 2,000 years ago who were so primitive and so unevolved and so unimaginative that he had to give them a symbol of his love. Well, what did he do? He took two concepts that we all know, matzah and wine. It was Passover. I'm not going to tell you stories that you already know. But, let's get real here. Here we have rice bread. This is a pork bun. It's made of rice. Excuse me. Rice is a grain, isn't it? Here we have tortilla made of corn. Corn is a grain. And here we have wheat. Wheat is a grain. So he had to veer off of the tree of knowledge of good and evil to present the world with another metaphor, one that was more powerful, one that was using a metaphor to create, a symbol. And the symbol is grass. The fruit of the grass, which is the grain. So to the Jews, this is the bread of affliction. This is a reminder of the passage from an Egypt within to an Israel within. from bondage to freedom. And to Jesus, this is, as he puts it, my body. This is my body. He compounds the metaphor and makes it into a symbol. This is my body, and this is my blood. What is blood? What is this stuff, wine? Let me explain it to you. You know, if it's unleavened, it's without ego. It's perfect. But if it rises up like this, it's egotistical, it's got all the problems of everyday life. It's not perfect. So let's do it with this one. Let's look at us and what he was trying to tell the world. And we're going to start here by putting in a little hole, you know, like a hole in the head. And we're going to try, I didn't do this at home, I hope this works. We're going to try putting in a little bit of wine into the bread. Yes, this is Cabernet Sauvignon that my boyfriend likes, and I hope I'm not going to use it all up because that would make him very angry. There. All right, so now we have the bread and the wine, the body and the blood. Now let's take a look at what we have inside. You see, this is what every human being looks like inside spiritually. Bread and wine, flesh and blood. As Shakespeare said, if you prick me, do I not bleed? That's where it comes from. This is what Jesus is talking about. This is what it means to be human. Why is it so important to be human? So that we can strive to be God-like, so that we can consume the essence of godliness and bring it in, so that we can understand that every human being has God within him and her, and we'll treat them with respect, and we'll treat them like a tree of knowledge or a grass with wheat that is growing, that has something to contribute to the world. That's the symbolism that Jesus was trying to bring to these people at that time. Father, why hast thou forsaken me? Why would he say that? Why would he say that after a lifetime of presenting people with the essence of godliness, with the essence of peace and love and wisdom in Israel? Why would he say, God, why hast thou forsaken me? Not for his sake. Not for his sake. He knew what he was talking about. Excuse me. It's no reflection on my religion. It's just something stuck in my throat. You don't need to do this to me. Don't embarrass me here. I'm doing my best. All right. So there's selfishness and there's selflessness. He was trying to get the people out of their selfishness by being selfless, perfectly selfless, to the nth degree. And he knew that on this path, that we would all have problems. There would come a point in our life where we would say to ourselves, I feel betrayed. I feel that God is against me. There's no hope left. I don't care about the colors. I don't care about the rainbow. I've lost hope, all hope. And for your sake, he says those words. Why have you forsaken me? Not for him, because he knows he's not forsaken, because he knows that you will use those words. There will come a point where you will worry about that, and he doesn't want to embarrass you. He wants you to know that he has gone that far, and he knows what you are feeling. Now, we have selfishness, we have selflessness, but as human beings, what can we do to stay in the middle? We can be self-centered. Your job, do the best you can. Now I want to go back and review a little bit. We have a head, Adam, we have a heart, Eve, and we have a conscience, God. We have Judaism, we have Christianity, we have Islam. We have thoughts, we have feelings, and we have beliefs. And when you use your thoughts, they often go in one direction, and your feelings often go in another direction. So you need to have a conscience that will balance the two. A conscience that can take your thoughts and feelings and keep you balanced. That's the essence of a conscience. However, you people, for some strange reason, whether your conscience is very well developed or not very well developed, it has gotten strong enough that God has said to you, I am moving in to your conscience, and I'm taking up residence within. And now this conscience becomes a soul. There's another name for it. You feel soulful. You feel deep. You feel relevant. You feel that there is a purpose to your life. This is particularly easy to describe to you. Why? Number one, this is the greatest Catholic church, bar none, that I have ever been to. And I've been to St. Peter's, I've been to St. Paul, I've been to Bethlehem, to the Church of the Nativity. By the way, Bethlehem, Hebrew word, what does it mean? Bet lechem, house of bread. This is the greatest Catholic church I've ever been to. Why? Because in the early 1980s, this is the first Catholic church in the world, and you have more than 1 billion people in your religion that went out and helped gay people, served gays. So I don't have to tell you the most simplistic of math questions in the New Age. What do you get when you add 1 plus 1 plus 1? God the Father, Jesus, and the Holy Spirit. What is 1 plus 1 plus 1? 1! The answer is 1! It's not that difficult. This is not rocket science. This is metaphor and symbol. All right. That was the body of this talk. Take a deep breath. We're on a downward course here. Conclusion. All right. Believe me, there's more than the conclusion. So, you know, there's questions at the end. And I got the questions and I got the answers. There's 4 questions and 4 answers. So don't worry. This is the metaphor that Moses brought into the world. Simple, you got it. This frozen concentrate, this is the symbol. Okay? And this is the sign. When it's reconstituted back again, this is Islam. You have metaphor, you have symbol, and you have sign. Let's do our best to put the 3 of them together to understand that they have a sense of connection, okay? All right, so that's the orange. The apple is the fruit of the tree. You're responsible for that. You're Christians, you're responsible for the entire book, all of it. You're responsible for the apple. Grain, the fruit of the grass. You're responsible for that too. What you're not responsible for is the legume. A legume is the fruit of a bush. This is Islam. This is Islam. This is the natural gift from God that reveals to us the gift of Islam, the legume. Judaism is the path of wisdom. Christianity is the path of love. And Islam is the path of generosity, generosity of spirit. This path of theirs, they talk about all the time, but it goes over our heads. We don't understand it. They say, Allah Karim. God is generous. God is generous. It's not enough. It's not enough that God be wise. It's not enough that God be loving. It's also important that he be generous. And if we are going to understand God, if we are going to understand how we are made in his image, and how he divided himself up into pieces so that we could learn about him through one another, we're going to have to explore the legume. We cannot just go out there and destroy a very important God-given sign that we need to know about and love. All right. Let's go back for a second to the brown M&Ms. Have you ever noticed how, I didn't try this before, let's see if I can do it. Ah, yes, not that hard. You ever tried to crush one of these? I mean, we've got a history of 300 years of taking these brown ones. By the way, I'm not going to waste them. I like them. And crushing them, one right after another. You know? They're good. As a matter of fact, we got one in the White House now. I love it. I absolutely love it. And I'm going to tell you why right now. Because we have 10 commandments. The first commandment is not even a commandment. The first commandment is, I am the Lord thy God who took you out of Egypt. Let me put that in terms of matters of the heart. The way he probably said it, at least in my opinion, 3,500 years ago, after he schlepped them out of Egypt, and now they're at the base of Mount Sinai, and they're doing their thing and, having a fun old time and doing whatever they like. And what does he say? I am the Lord, thy God. I took you out of Egypt. You didn't take me along for the ride. That's not even a commandment. That's just let me introduce myself here. Number 2, no other gods before me. Number 3, thou shalt not say the Lord's name in vain. That's my name. Don't talk about him badly. He puts it in the third person so that we will treat him with some deference, some courtesy, some politeness. He makes it very clear. And then he gives us time. Keep the Sabbath holy. Keep it subjective and keep it objective, and have a little bit of understanding about the two. All of that's pretty easy. But then he says, honor your father and mother. Are you kidding me? Thank God he didn't say love them. Thank God he didn't say obey them. Thank God he didn't say amuse them. He just said honor them. Do the best you can. Well, those are the first 5 commandments. And God put them on a separate tablet from the second 5. Why? He could have put them on 1. Why put them on 2? Because there's a separation here. These first 5 you do for him, for his sake. But if you get to number 5, honoring your father and mother, then you get to number 6. And number 6 is don't kill anybody. Because number 5, they'll drive you crazy. Then, you know, you finish with them, and you're gonna want to kill somebody. So that's number 6. Try not to kill anybody. But then we have number 7. Number 7, don't commit adultery. In other words, keep your promises. Don't let the serpent and Eve mix with your mind. Don't let your desires get out of control. Didn't we have a president who did that? Excuse me, do we want another one? Newt Gingrich? That's what they're offering us? A repeat? We don't need that kind of problem. I thought we learned a lesson. Skip Newt Gingrich. Number 7, been there, done that. Number 8, do not steal. Mitt Romney? Corporations are people too, my friend. Oh yeah, oh yeah. Well, when you buy the Supreme Court, and you buy Wall Street, and you buy Washington, that's not stealing. That's not stealing. I bought them. Skip number 8. You don't need that kind of nonsense. Now we come to my favorite, Mr. Santorum. Man on dog. Man on dog? You would call me, a Jew, a dog? Are you kidding me? My father and mother are Holocaust survivors. My father is a graduate of the German institution of learning called concentration camp, Dachau concentration camp. Kadosh in Hebrew, make whole. But you cannot make something whole until you first separated it. He separated the Israelites from the rest of the people, and then he separated the Jew from the Gentile, and then the Catholic from the Protestant, and the Christian from the Muslim. He's continued this separation process in order to make things separate so that we would make it whole, so that we would bring things back together again. That's the essence of Kadosh. Now I'd like to move to Hinduism. There's a wonderful Hindu story about the blind men and the elephant, Menimo and Jack, the Jew, the Gentile, and the Muslim. They are all touching the elephant. One touches the trunk. He says the elephant is like a hose. The other one touches the tusks. The elephant is like a spear. One touches the tail, you know, and it's like a rope. Then they move around. No, actually it's like a wall, the body. No, it's like a pillar. It's like the leg. They're all blind. They're all blind. They've got to come together and compare notes. They've got to add it all up. You cannot get to a picture of an elephant if you use one blind man or another or a third. You've got to get all of them talking to one another to see the big picture. Speaking of blind, I'm back to the banana. I once did volunteer work for the Lighthouse for the Blind, and I had a friend there whose name was Samantha. Samantha was blind from birth, and because we knew each other over a long period of time, I finally got up the nerve to say, Samantha, as an English teacher, as a lover of words, the depth of words, of the word, I would like to know what a word means to you? She said, sure, what's the word? I said, yellow. What does yellow mean? She said to me, yellow is warm like the sun. Yellow is embracing. But what yellow has got to do with bananas, I've got no idea. This rainbow that was in the sky, that has been brought down to earth, that has given us such hope, that has given us something that other people don't have, an essence of what yellow has to do with bananas. We've got to find ways to share what we know. We've got to find ways to teach them. All right, moving right along. There's a story about a rabbi, and in comes a Christian and a Muslim, and they're arguing. And the Christian tells the rabbi his side of the story. And the rabbi listens and he says, you know, you're right. And then he listens to the Muslim side of the story. And you know what the Muslim tells him? I don't know. But what does the rabbi say? He says, you know, you're right. And then his wife says to him, honey, how can he be right and he be right? You know what he says? You're right. Is it so difficult that we could all be right? All right. The difficulty in all of us being right is a Buddhist problem. It's the problem of paradox. How can all of us be right at the same time? Now, I'm not good at flipping coins because I'm not, I did all right. All right, how do you know if it's landed head side up or tail side up? According to the Buddhist, it doesn't matter. Get your head off of the coin. Get your head back in your head. Look at life from the inside. Look at it subjectively, not objectively. And if you look at it objectively, move your eyesight from here to here, and it will land head. And if you move yourself from here to here, it will have landed tail. It's you that needs to change. It's you that needs to switch your perspective to the inside. See life as something from the inside out and not from the outside in. See it subjectively before you see it objectively. Objectively will teach you how to survive, but it won't teach you how to live. Living is a subjective experience. My sister, let's talk about family. My sister's name is Rena. Rena is a Hebrew word. It means the song of God. Honey, when you listen to my sister in our family, it's like a screech. It's not a song. But that's a family problem, and I really probably shouldn't be washing my laundry in public. But the song of God, what makes his song a song? What makes any song a song? What makes it a song is that it has a melody and it has lyrics. What is the melody of God? It's love. The melody of God is love. What is the lyrics of God? The lyrics of God is wisdom. That's what makes his song our song. And he sings to each one of us. And how do you hear him? And how do you play back his song? With this instrument that he's given you. You do the best you can to harmonize with everybody else with the instrument that you've been given. Not long ago, they outlawed music, or they wanted to outlaw music. Can you think of anything more diabolical than outlawing music? Never heard of such a thing. Now I want to talk about Talmud. If we're talking about wisdom, and we're talking about the Hebrew Bible and the Torah, Tanakh, and Talmud the encyclopedia, here is a page for you from Tanakh. You probably won't be able to see very much of it. It's divided up in a funny kind of way, and every page of Talmud is divided up differently. So what I've done here is I've given you a visual demonstration of the kind of division that is on this page of Talmud. And it's thousands of pages. But what this is an exploration of Torah from a moral point of view that occurred between the time of Jesus and the time of Muhammad, from about the first 500 years of the new calendar. And during that time, the rabbis were discussing moral issues. And one rabbi, let's say the blue rabbi, said something in the year 50. And then let's say the yellow rabbi responded to that idea in the year 175. And then let's say in the year 225, this guy in brown said something else in relationship to what they had said. And then here's the orange rabbi, the year 350, and so on and so forth. This is wisdom. This is a conversation that takes place over time. A conversation that takes place over time. This is the love of wisdom. This is what the Jews have contributed to the world. The love of wisdom. So what did the Christians contribute to the world? The Christians contributed to the world the wisdom of love. And who is the greatest contributor, although certainly not by far the least, the greatest contributor to the wisdom of love in Christianity is Johann Sebastian Bach. He took wisdom and liquefied it. He took wisdom and turned it into love, liquid love, called music. He had fugues. He had all these kinds of music where he combined different voices. These are moral statements. Every one of them is precious. He combined them in a very precious way. He is the essence of Talmud for Christianity. He was lost. There was a Jew who had to hear his music and go, oh my God, this is so special. Felix Mendelssohn, 200-300 years after Bach, discovered Bach. You've got more than you realize. You've given more than you know. And it's up to all of us, Jews, Christians, Muslims, Buddhists, Hindus, and atheists, to give credit where credit is due. All right, we're getting there. Hang in there. Bar mitzvah, bat mitzvah. What is a bar mitzvah? You know, when a boy or a girl reaches the age of 13, they're no longer a child. They move into the world of adulthood. How does that happen? Did you ever ask any Jew? What's going on here? Don't bother. They don't know. They don't know. I don't know what it takes. Ritual, going through the motions all the time. Did you ever bother to ask yourself, what are you doing it for? A bar mitzvah is that time in life. Here is the bar mitzvah boy, and here is God. And who stands between him? His parents. For the first 13 years of his life, his parents stand between him and God. And everything that he or she does, his parents have to respond for, take credit for, or take blame for. God holds the parents responsible. It's an important job. But at 13, parents step out of the way, and a child has a direct relationship with God. It matters. And I'm telling all the youngsters of today, as a teacher, after the age of 13, you really better give some thought to what you're doing, because now it matters. It really does. So much for the bar mitzvah. All right. What's this? Here we have a rainbow. Here we have M&Ms, but these are peanut. Okay? What is the peanut? The peanut is a legume. What makes this legume different from this legume? This legume grows in the air. It grows above ground. It grows in spirit. This legume does not. This legume grows underground, beneath the earth, in the darkness. This legume grows closer and closer to the rock. This legume is very, very special. It may have been invented by a man by the name of George Washington Carver in America. But it's popular all over the world. This legume is particularly important today in terms of Iran and the troubles that we're having with Iran. Well, let's take one of these. Let's take a little look at it. What do we have here? On the outside, we have candy coating, right? Love. And then underneath that, we have chocolate. And then right at the center, we have a legume called a peanut. Okay? These are even better than these. I mean, when you put all three together, it is really, really interesting. It's very, very good. So I suggest that we get to know these peanuts, and we make sure that these peanuts, that they're growing underground, atomic bombs, are the wrong use of power. It's a bad application. There are better ways to use this tree of knowledge or this bush of learning, of generosity of spirit, because this is what it stands for. It stands for generosity. Having love and having wisdom is not enough. You've got to have generosity. You have to give it away. You have to recreate it, make more and more and more of it. Without generosity, charity, it's useless. It's all for you. It has to grow. It has to be compounded, multiplied. So when we go back to the prayer that my father taught me, Shema, hear with your head and listen with your heart. Israel, those who struggle with God. Adonai, Eloheinu, Adonai, the God within, the God that doeth the work, the God who introduces himself to Moses first. And when Moses says, you want me to go back where? And tell them I did what? For whose sake? And he says to God, who am I going to say sent me? And he says, what will be, will be. Ihyeh asher ihyeh. What will be, will be. YHVH. Jehovah. It's not Jehovah. It's YHVH. It's the verb to be in the past, the present, and the future. Who am I? He says. He answers. I am the Father of time. Look around you. Look at the seasons. Look at yourself in the mirror. Look at what happens to you. You cannot control time. What did Jesus say? He said, this is my body. This is my container. What is this? This is experience. You pour experience into your life. Over time, it becomes very personal and very powerful. A little lightheaded, but very, very special. You are the combination of a container being filled with love and wisdom and generosity. And the word shalom in Hebrew means peace. Did you ever ask anybody, what does that really mean? Where does it come from? What are you talking about when you talk about shalom, salam? Where do these words come from? Shalom comes from the verb lishalem, which means to fill. Shalom is a filling process. Jesus was trying to get these ideas across with symbol to people who understood it immediately because they understood Hebrew, because they understood the time in which they lived and the times that had come before them. It was a no-brainer for them. It was very easy. It had to be broken down, just as Torah had to be broken down into words. The symbols had to be broken down. The signs have to be broken down. The signs of things to come. This is the Purim season. Purim is that holiday where Esther saves the Jewish people from the Persians. Look around. Do I look like a Queen Esther? No, a queen, but not Queen Esther. I say to the Ayatollah in Iran, look around you. Does that look like ancient Persia? No. The times have changed, Cookie. My books. My first book was called Becoming, 89 poems of my love for me. They're poems, and they are explanations of the poems. It's very concentrated. It's only 100 pages, but it's very, very concentrated, and you really have to be willing to go very, very slowly. The second book is a little bit more diluted. It's called The Wisdom of Self-Love, because love emanates out from within. Life is a school. I am my major. And if you want to graduate with good grades, you better get your PhD in love. That's what you're here for. That's what you're doing. That's what you're experts in. That's why, for some strange reason, I'm here today preaching to the choir. You already know all of this. I'm not telling you anything you don't know. And now my third book, called The Greatest Story Ever Retold, the Bible from the forbidden fruits point of view. The fruit could be an apple, the fruit could be a grain, and the fruit could be a legume. This is Torah, 500 pages of Torah explained step by step in terms of the modern age. All right, my books. We're through with the conclusion. All right, questions. When wisdom could not be any further away from love, the most horrible time in the history of humanity, and what have we been able to do in only 65 years? We have been able to do this, especially in this country, with our Judeo-Christian values. We have been able to hug ourselves, to hug one another. It's very important, and I don't want to see the Republicans do that. Not to me, not to you, and not to themselves. What is abortion? I talked about Abraham for a moment. I said there, Abraham was a mature man, the first mature man of the Bible. But Abraham was an idiot. He was very inexperienced. He had a mistress named Hagar, and he had a wife named Sarai, and then her name is turned into Sarah. Sarai, Sarah. It's a play on words. You've got to understand Hebrew. We start with the essence of feeling, which my boyfriend demonstrated so beautifully, and I love his body, and I'm glad to have shown it off to you. The essence of feeling begins with Eve. But the three faces of Eve are Hagar, Sarai, and Sarah. Hagar, who is the mother of Islam, her name means forsaken. And her son's name, Ishmael, means man of God. We are all men of God. And women all have a side to them that is forsaken, that feels terribly betrayed. You want to take the people who have been the most crushed in this world? It's women. The ultimate minority, the ultimate victim of life is women. Look how we've treated them. Naturally, they feel forsaken. Now let's look at Sarai, the first name of Sarah. It means quarrelsome, argumentative. Oh, talk to my sister Rena. You see that side of women. So argumentative, so quarrelsome. Well, do we make it that easy for them? You know, jealousy, envy, not keeping your promises, not following through on right and wrong. It's not easy for them. It's very understandable. But Sarai stood by her man, and she was loyal to him. You remember loyalty? The core of guilt, humiliation. He humiliated her by throwing his illegitimate son, Ishmael, out of the house. That's a humiliating thing to do. You must be crazy. You're a father. You don't throw out your children. Not for any reason. Not for being gay, not for being illegitimate, for no reason. You don't do that. That's wrong. He threw him out, and he threw out Hagar. They could have died if not for God. That's ridiculous. And then what does he do with Isaac? He tries to kill him. You must be out of your mind. That's mature. You better follow along. You better read more of the Bible. You better figure out what comes after Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Joseph, Moses, who writes the book. There's a lot more to it. So, God changes Sarai's name, because of her loyalty, to Sarah. Sarah means princess. Now, there are a lot of name changes in the Bible, but what makes this name change so special is that he doesn't give her a name, he gives her a title. Why is that so important? Because God is the king, and he gives her the title of princess. You are my princess on earth. And any man who wants to be a prince in my kingdom, like the Prince of Peace, how did he get that name? By treating women right. That's how he did it. How does a man get to become a prince of a guy? It can only happen in the eyes of a woman. A woman has to look at him, and she has to feel in her heart, that's a prince of a guy. If that happens, then he becomes a prince in God's kingdom, and only then. All right. So, abortion. What is it that women want? We have here 5 commandments, and women have been, on the first 5, adored and treated as honorably as we possibly can. Now they want to go to the other 5? You want the right to kill? You want the right to kill? Even a zygote? Even an embryo? An unborn child? We're men. We're not going to allow that. We say who kills and who doesn't. We kill. That's our right. We love to kill. We hate to kill. We decide to kill. Give that right to a woman? Do you think they're wise enough? Do you think they're loving enough? Do you think they have enough spirit? I do. I do. I think it's time for her to be bat mitzvahed. I think it's time for us to stop treating her like a girl and start to treat women like women. You want blood on your hands? You better believe that God is merciful. You better believe it, because God knows we men had better believe it. And if we believe that He's that merciful, we'll bat mitzvah them. We'll let them move forward and get a little blood on their hands. It wouldn't kill them. Self-love. You can't give what you ain't got. It starts from within. God within does the work. You have to love yourself. I suggest you marry you, for better or for worse, forever. I suggest it. And then after that, marry whoever you like, in my opinion. But that's what I feel. I think we really should allow ourselves to love ourselves. And then you know what happens? People are for practice. People are for practice. Practice your love on them. If you make a mistake, go back, fix it, become a little wiser, move on. Not that tough. All right. What's the problem with the Republican Party? What is it? What's their problem? I mean, it's pretty big. It's pretty obvious. Well, if we were to boil it down to help them instead of just to condemn them, if we were really to practice what we preach, what would we have to do to help them? We would have to help them see that the problem is spiritual psychology. It's not just a matter of the mind or the heart. It's a matter of spirit. It's a matter of spiritual psychology. We have to help them grow up and understand themselves. We have to teach them where are they now? These books can do together. There's a lot to learn. There's an awful lot to learn. Nobody's perfect. Everybody makes mistakes. But when you internalize these books, when you make them live through you from the inside out, I think it's possible. I think there's hope. I think there's a lot of hope. But if we talk about Iran, and we're talking about peanuts, what would it cost them right now for them to let the IAEA in and have inspections? And if they were to admit what they've really been doing, what would it cost them? It would cost them a little bit of embarrassment. It would cost them some shame. And it would cost them some humiliation. Haven't we been through it? Is it that big a deal? Couldn't we forgive? Couldn't we move on? What would it cost them? It would cost them peanuts. All right. I'm done.